I have an announcement to make before we start this episode. The only Final Fantasy VII product I fully experienced is Crisis Core.
Why Crisis Core though?
First off, I can do what I want. Secondly, it's a prequel, even if it does retcon and recontextualizes elements of the original. Third, Zack is just so darn charming. And fourth, Gak.
Fair, but you're gonna get cannibalized by the fans.
Not if I cannibalize them first!
Oh no.
E3 2015 was a time of Nintendo puppets and No Man's Sky lies, but it was also a time of reunion. During the PlayStation conference, a trailer was shown for a new Square Enix project with familiar music and freaking Cloud Strife! That's right, Final Fantasy VII was finally getting remade after much fan demand and disappointed sighs over the PS3 tech demo. Being developed in-house by Square Enix, the devs decided rather than just modernizing the writing and graphics like a simple remaster, the team decided to completely rebuild and reimagine the game from scratch, even though they had the option of making it the exact same as the original. While many were disappointed in this choice, I think it was a good one to make. The classic Final Fantasy VII already got ported to PS4 and PC at the time, so what would be the point of a remake that's basically just the original with better graphics when the original is right there? I don't think this port of the original game was a bad move, however, as it's great to have easy access to the original game if you don't like the shiny new remake. This isn't replacing the original game, it's just a modern option. One of the first big changes we saw was the gameplay, which we saw some of at the PlayStation Experience in 2015. Unfortunately, after this event, the game went radio silent for 4 years until 2019, where it was re-revealed with brand new looks at the story, gameplay, and a release date of March 3rd, 2020, though it was delayed by a month, coming out on April 10th, 2020. Viewing the reception from the fans and general gaming audience, aka the people who actually matter rather than the critics, it's been mixed. Some people love the game, calling it a Game of the Year contender, an interesting adaptation on beloved characters, and a great commentary on fan expectations, while others think it's an insult to the original with clunky mechanics and stupid story changes. From the mixed reception, I can tell that this game is going to be the next Final Fantasy XIII, where people are going to be screaming at each other about their differing opinions rather than talk like civilized people. It's probably going to get worse when the next parts of the remake come out, but we'll get there when we get there. For now, let's talk about the first part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. While I bought the game digitally because germs stink, I still want to mention the physical version because it has 2 discs. But not in the way you think. This isn't like the Final Fantasy games on PS1 where each disc has a different part of the game, rather one disc is a data disc you put into the console first, while the other is the full game. The story of Final Fantasy VII has evil big corporation Shinra using Mako energy from the planet to power the entire city of Midgar. Shinra has elite warriors that carry out their dirty work called Soldier, and Cloud Strife was one of them. Though Cloud has defected from Soldier, joining up with the rebel force Avalanche who want to stop Shinra from hurting the planet, but Cloud's just in it for a quick paycheck. Though as the story continues, Cloud finds himself getting more and more involved in the battle between Shinra and Avalanche, and then more stuff happens. We'll get back to the narrative near the end of this episode, but for now, I want to talk about an aspect of Final Fantasy VII Remake I was very worried about. The gameplay. The original Final Fantasy VII used the typical turn-based combat system found in many classic JRPGs, but stood out from the others thanks to the cinematic camera angles the battles were shown in, and the fun customization of the materia system that lets you give any character any spell or skill you have. As I mentioned during the development portion, the remake decided to change the gameplay. No more menus where you strategically decide what attacks are most effective on your enemies. Now it's time to hack, slash, gun, punch, and magical orb your foes to death. Though there is still strategy to be found in Final Fantasy VII Remake with the retooled ATB system. If you want to use an item, special, or a spell, you must have part of this gauge filled or else you're stuck doing basic attacks and running away, which gives the already challenging bosses and encounters more tension, though not in an unfair way since the ATB far fills rather quickly from my experience. There are 4 playable characters in this game: Cloud, Barret, Tifa, and Aerith. Cloud is the main character who specializes in melee weapons which have an impactful weight against enemies in combat, which makes the standard hacking and slashing along with the special moves really fun to use. Barret focuses on long-range gunplay, but while he doesn't have the same crunchy melee attacks like Cloud, he's less likely to get caught in a bunch of damage since you can attack your foes from afar. Tifa's all about punches and kicks, along with building up a more powerful attack for her special. Tifa's my favorite character to play as, since her attacks have the expected lightweight punch, along with how seamless her combos flow into one another when she's wailing on an enemy. Aerith is much like Barret in that she specializes in long-range attacks, but has special moves that revolve around healing and magic. I like playing as all these characters, even if I have my favorites, but there is one fatal flaw of this combat system: the aerial combat. There is no jump button in this game, but there are enemies that are airborne, so when Cloud attacks these enemies, he'll awkwardly go up to the air to fight them. This isn't help with those dude bro enemies that will juggle you into the air when you can do nothing in the air. Not only are these situations frustrating, but these are issues that can easily be fixed if you redesign the aerial enemies to be closer to the ground, or by letting me recover in the air like in Kingdom Hearts. Outside of the air combat annoyance, I still like the combat in this game. I do prefer the original battle system because I love turn-based RPGs, but this is a fine replacement that will hopefully get tweaked for the better in the sequels. Though I will admit, when I got to the Hell House fight, I had to lower the difficulty for the rest of the game because I didn't want to be on that fight for very long. Moving on to something less controversial that won't cause hellish debates in the comments, let's talk about the main reason most people want this remake in the first place.
Whoa, nice graphic!
Final Fantasy VII looks gorgeous from a technical perspective. Yes, there were shortcuts to be made to get the character models in most environments looking good, but a lot of them are understandable shortcuts. I mean, if my PS4 had to render all those buildings in real time, it would probably explode. Though I do have an issue with the art style, and that's the designs of the new characters. Now, all the old characters like Cloud, Barret, Tifa, Aerith, and the rest look excellent. But then you have the NPCs, which look straight out of Final Fantasy 15 with some tweaks to their clothing, which isn't a good thing since Final Fantasy 15 had some pretty bad designs for their NPCs. However, the music is awesome, with a grandiose feeling for the battle themes and a peaceful serenity for the more emotional moments, though I prefer the quirkiness of the PS1 game, to be honest. The remake soundtrack is great, don't get me wrong, but I think the original had a bit more personality, which is why you'll be hearing it throughout this episode instead of the remake soundtrack. Aw man, we're getting pretty negative up in here. Let's segue to more negative things! Let's start with my least favorite chapter of the game. Chapter 17. I know most people complain about the Ghost Train level, but I didn't mind it despite the odd timing in the story. But then Chapter 17 comes around. Oh boy. Out of all the extra padding they did to make a 5-hour section a 25-hour adventure, this was the worst of it. There were sections similar to this level spread out throughout the game, but they were relatively short compared to Chapter 17's unnecessarily long length. This is also the worst time you can get to this chapter since we're nearing the end of the game where the story is getting really interesting. Then there's the side quest, which could have been fun distractions, but they don't tell that interesting of stories along with being mostly dull fetch quests. I heard there's some cool side quests later in the game, but after a certain point, I just couldn't bear doing them anymore. But of all the quests I played, I do recommend doing the Nerdy Kids quest, as not only does it cut the BS and get straight to the action, but you get decent rewards in return, like new summons and materia. But when people are complaining about this game, most of them aren't really talking about the gameplay, they're talking about the controversial narrative of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Some love it, some hate it, some are in between, so where do I fit? FF7R's writing is great. At characterization. Cloud is a cool dork like in the original game, instead of being the teenage girl fantasy version of him that was in the extra content of Final Fantasy VII. Barret is my new dad, who would run the best unscripted review channel. Tifa is motherly and cute, and Aerith is an adorable sass queen. These characters are entertaining on their own, but when they're bantering with each other, it's a whole nother level of pure fun and emotion, which helps shows the franchise's themes of friendship and working together. The extra characters like Best Girl Jessie, the pizza, and Good Boy Wedge are so much fun that I wish we at least had one segment where they could join your party or even play as them. As for the villains, the Shinra executives are cartoonishly evil in the best way possible and serve as funny and at times too close to home satires of corrupt governments and businesses. And then there's Sephiroth. Now, I don't mind Sephiroth towards the end of the game, but man, I rolled my eyes when he showed up in most of the game. I think it would be better to tease Sephiroth for most of the game and then fully introduce him at Chapter 16 in a hologram tour video scene, which is a creepy yet cool scene that could have had a bigger impact if he fully debuted here, rather than seeing him all around the city and the rest of the game. The rest of this review is going to be spoiler-filled. If you're wondering what my final verdict on the game is, I like it despite its faults. If you haven't played the game or want to go in blind, then tune out for now. For everyone else, the Whispers. In the story, the Whispers are the embodiment of fate itself, who attempt to course-correct anything that isn't part of their plan. However, when we put the meta-commentary goggles on, they're a representation of the necessity to stick to the original game of Final Fantasy VII. At the end of the game, Cloud and the gang defeat them, which basically says that the future parts of the remake are not going to strictly follow the original game. The internet has been split on this meta-commentary. Some are ticked that Square Enix are bringing their Kingdom Hearts BS to Final Fantasy VII when they want it to be a one-to-one remake, while others are praising the meta-commentary and the boldness of the team for making this choice. For me, I like it, but I feel mixed in one part in particular that I'll get to in a bit. There's a lot of interesting setup and teases for future parts of the remake, along with a bold creative choice that gives the creators freedom to do whatever they want. Even if the story becomes garbage in the later games, I still respect Square for making a bold move that benefits the creators first and foremost. Hey, remember in the beginning of this review when I mentioned that the only part of the Final Fantasy VII compilation I beat was Crisis Core? Well, Zack Fair, the main protagonist of that game who died at the end, is now alive in this remake and has survived his last stand against Shinra. This is a choice that I want to hate, since Zack's death in Crisis Core is the saddest thing in video game history for me, and reversing that just seems wrong. But I want to see where this goes in future games before getting too pissy about it. Also, if I may nitpick before I go into the final verdict, playing music over Zack's iconic last speech just ruined the mood of that scene big time, especially when comparing it to Crisis Core's version of the speech. As a starting point to the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, this is a darn good one. The action combat works well despite the awkwardness that needs tweaking here and there, the characters have enjoyably big personalities, and it's a spectacle most of the time. The pacing still needs work, but if Square Enix takes all the feedback and legit criticisms from this game and works to improve upon it in future games, then I think the Remake series is going to be a winner on our hands. Though then again, with all the freedom the writers have, they can easily screw it up. But that's okay. The original game is not going anywhere, as it's still available on computers and modern systems. This isn't like Warcraft 3 Reforged, where they made the original game unplayable by releasing the new one. This is just an alternate take on Final Fantasy VII, and if you don't like it, then that's fine. People can have their own opinion, both positive and negative. Just discuss that opinion respectfully and not like angry raccoons on the street. I know that's a lot to ask for the internet, and you're right, so I should just shut up and end the episode. I know there's a bunch more theory crafting and references to Final Fantasy VII products like Advent Children, but I haven't experienced any of them minus Crisis Core, so I don't think I'm qualified to talk about their connections to this game. If you do want to know more about those references, check out DrCullenPHD and Clemps' videos on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. You know, I had this whole ending bit planned out of the Whispers invading my studio, but Sid fell asleep during the review, so I'm just gonna end the episode here. Have a nice day, I guess.